Thank you, Vasmati ma'am. That was an interesting presentation. We now have the last speaker of the session, Dr. K. Vidyuta, who will be presenting her paper on architecture and the mind. Dr. K. Vidyuta holds MA, MPhil and PhD in Sanskrit. She has done her doctorate in the field of temple architecture, the title of her thesis being Kashyapa Shilpa Shastra on Prakara, Mandapa and Gopura Lakshana under the guidance of Dr. T.V. Vasudeva, Deputy Director, KSRI. She has presented research papers in many national and international seminars and conferences in different parts of India and abroad, including the 16th World Sanskrit Conference held at Bangkok in June of 2015. Her MPhil dissertation on Deva Prasada in Vishwakarma Vastu Shastra was published as a book by the Karnataka Historical Society, Dharwad. She has co-authored a book, Shivaswarodaya, with English translation notes. The book was released during the inauguration of the 75th anniversary celebrations of our institute. She has already published many research papers in leading Indological journals. Her specialization includes Sanskrit literature, yoga, ancient Indian mathematics, and temple architecture. I now invite Dr. Vidyuta to present her paper on architecture and on the mind.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. Namaste, Sabhabadishya. I'm going to talk on the topic architecture and the mind. Architecture, interior design, and even city planning can affect human behaviors and mental processes, causing psychological, biophysical, and cognitive changes in people, often without their knowledge. This influence happens often accidentally. A subset of neuroscientists and psychologists is now working with architects and designers to understand how and why spaces, from city sidewalks to buildings, from individual rooms to public halls, have strong cognitive and psychological impacts. And because we spend so much time in these spaces, the way they are designed can have significant impacts on our lives. While the modern day man quizzes upon these issues, our ancestors laid down a shastra called the Vastu Shastra that detailed the effects of the 5 elements on the body and the mind of men. Therefore, they prescribe certain rules for constructing buildings and also for choosing the very site for the construction. They have laid down the fundamental canons of Hindu architecture, which they have given it as 4. Mainly it is 4. There are in some texts there is an addition of one more thing called as Chandavarga. The basic things are Dik Nirnaya, which is the doctrine of orientation, Vastupada Vinyasa or site planning, Mana, which includes measurements of the structure, and Ayali Shatvarga are the 6 component structures and the formulas to build it. Coming to Dik Nirnaya, this is done through a technical device called Shanku Stapana. Shanku is an omen by means of which the cardinal points are ascertained for the orientation of the building. Hindu treatises on the science of architecture deals with the rules for the Shanku Stapana. Astronomical treatises like Surya Siddhanta, Siddhanta Shironmani, Leelavati, Brahmasputa Siddhanta, and Pancha Siddhantika, and almost all the architectural treatises like Mayamata, Manasara, Kashyapa Shilpa, and so on have dealt on this cardinal principle of architecture. The theory of orientation of buildings, secular as well as ecclesiastical, as laid down by the Indian designers of structures, consists in setting them in plan in such a way that they may secure the maximum benefit from the solar radiation automatically. Temples, living places, assembly halls, audience rooms, and host of structures to meet the needs of men and all grades are thus so adjusted in plan as to secure an eastern frontage. Mainly the Shanku Stapana is to fix the cardinal, because they didn't have a compass that in those days. They used to fix the cardinal points of the plan of the site they have selected. So according to Manasara, records that Shanku Stapana must be done before sunrise and preferably during Uttarayana, or else it can be done during Krishnayana. Shukla Paksha is preferred to Krishna Paksha, and full moon days and new moon days should be avoided for taking the measurements. This technique of orientation of buildings is very intimately related with another equally significant and important canon, the Vastu Purusha Mandala, the metaphysical plan of the Hindu building, a temple diagram, or a site plan, house, or any building plan. Vastu Purusha Mandala has already been described by Dr. Rama ma'am. It's just it is an intellectual foundation of the building, a forecast of its ascent, and its projection on earth. The concepts of Vastu, Purusha, and Mandala are equally important and significant. Vastu is the primarily the plan site. Vastu Purusha, the supernal or the cosmic man, which is symbolic of the metaphysical import. Mandala denotes any closed polygon, and the form of Vastu Purusha Mandala is usually considered to be a square. When a site is selected for constructing a village, town or building or a house, etc., it is divided into different number of squares. As she has already shown, the most sacred number is 64, but Manasara distinguishes 32 kinds of such mandalas, and Samarangana Sutradhara also includes 81 squares, 100 squares, and the usual 64 squares. It is to be noted that each of these squares is assigned to a presiding deity called the Padadevatas, and these Padadevatas are divided into internal and external. That is meaning, in the Vastupusha Mandala, the outer layer, which is considered for the construction of prakaras and all, will have a set of deities, and the inner layer will have a set of deities. The Padadevatas, there are 13 internal deities and 32 external deities. Even though the number of squares, that is 81 squares or 1000 squares or anything like that, if it expands, or 100 squares also, if it expands also, the deities space will increase, but the number of deities doesn't change. So, next we go on to, as I have quoted Aparaja Pulcha here, next is the Marmasthanas. Marmas are the points where in the Vastupusha Mandala, here as you see in the Vastupusha Mandala, the intersecting points of the squares is called as Marmasthanas. In this Marmasthanas, it is a very vital point and vulnerable spot in a building area. So they have the texts say that no structures should be built on these points to avoid adverse effects on the residents and of the house, and depending upon which Marmasthana they are going to plant it. Next is the Mana. The third fundamental canon of Hindu architecture is Mana, the proportionate measurements. Unless a building is proportionately and perfectly measured out, it cannot give an auspicious result according to Vishwakarma Vastastra. The Brahmanda Purana gives a very apt origin of Mana, of which Angula and Hasta are standard measurement. It is stated in the Purana that people at first used to live in caves, mountains, rivers, etc. They began to build houses in order to protect themselves from cold and heat. Then they built ketas, puras, gramas and nagaras, and to measure their lengths, breadth and the intermediate distance between two settlements, the people instinctively employ their own fingers. Thenceforward, the angulas are used as standards of measurement. Next is the Ayadi Shatvarga. Ayadi is a group of 6 formulas, namely Aya, Vyaya, Yoni, Tara, Bhavanamshaka and Grihanama. These 6 things also differ according to some texts, but this has been taken as standard things. Yoni is mostly used, the Yoni formula is mostly used in temple constructions, and there are different subdivisions for all the 6 of these. The Shadvarga are the 6 main components of the building, comprising of the Adhisthana Varga, as Dr. Anasundam sir has explained today morning. Next slide. You can see in the picture the Adhisthana Varga from downwards. Pada, the Stambha Varga, Prastara Varga, Griva Varga, Shikara Varga and Stupi Varga. And the Ayadi Varga formulas must be used to construct these Shadvargas of a building for proper orientation and proper dimension. I have just given the temple as an example, but the same thing is used for building houses and houses also. All these above canons are interrelated. Moving on, our ancient Indians laid down many favorable and unfavorable effects the structures have on the minds and behavior of the people. This is one of the main part of the Vastu Shastra. The human body is constituted by the 5 elements, as Dr. Rama ma'am has already explained, and which has been which is affirmed by the Garbhopanishad. Panchatmakam panchasu vartamanam shadashrayam shadaguna gunayo ganittam योगयुक्तं तत् सप्तधातु त्रिमलं द्वियोनि चतुर्विधाहारमयं शरीरम. Similarly, the Vastuparsha Mandala is also influenced by the Panchabhutas. Each of these elements represent a specific type of energy. The built space is correlated to the universe since the energies of each one have an impact on the other, and it is essential for these energies to be balanced. These elements are also related to the 5 senses of our body, and these elements are important in maintaining a positive feeling in every built space. Since the 5 elements are born out of the Brahma's mind, the built space has an impact on human mind too, according to Suri Siddhanta. So naturally, in any human planning, be it a town or a residential house, not only its surrounding regions or environment are worthy of consideration, but also the country and the world at large, and also the planet in toto, are to be taken into consideration, for human life is not isolated, as it is guided by the stars that reside in their respective planetary homes. Therefore, a detailed knowledge of astrology and Vastu Shastra is required to plan a town, village, house, and so on. Any imbalance of these 5 elements or any discrepancy in the Vastu Purusha Mandala or any violation in the Mana or Aya, the Shatvarga, or the shape of the land from the ones prescribed in the scriptures will lead to the inauspiciousness or instability of the plan. Moving on to the inauspicious towns, Vasumati ma'am has already talked about town planning. I am just going to highlight on what the scriptures have told about the inauspiciousness cause, the discrepancy, what happens, what outcome is there when a discrepancy happens. The inauspiciousness or unsuitability or imperfection of a town plan mostly rests on the occurrence of a variation in the shape, contrary to the one deemed fit and auspicious. Depending upon the shape, each architectural text mentions various types of towns and their benefits for the people who dwell therein. While the Samarana Sutradhara restricts its prescriptions only to the square one, the Mayamata, Devi Purana, the Vishwakarma Vastu Shastra recommend many good shapes like square, rectangle, oblong, circular, elliptical, triangle, and so on. Bhoja in his Uktita Pataru approves the opinion of the Bhavishyotara Purana that says, hardly ever, I quote, hardly ever should towns be shaped triangular or circular, while longitudinal or square towns are the best. While long-shaped towns make for permanence, peace and prosperity, a square capital yields to the sovereign of all the 4 fruitions, namely Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. Triangular towns annihilate the 3 powers, whereas circular ones are hotbeds of many endemic pestilences. Whereas the Kalika Purana emphasizes that triangular or bow-shaped or square or round-shaped cities are auspicious, and any other shape is inauspicious. For that, they give the example of city of Lanka and Ayodhya. They say that since the Lanka was shaped like a drum or Mridanga Kriti, it was conquered and left in debris. While the city of Ayodhya, which was shaped like a bow, Ganurakriti, brought victory to the Ikshvaku clan. This was also mentioned by Dr. Rama ma'am when she was telling, Vasumati ma'am when she was talking about town plan, shape of towns. The text Vastu Vidya lays down the auspicious and inauspicious results that occur according to various discrepancies in the measurements or the difference in the Vastu Purusha Mandala depending upon the 5 elements, and also states the effects of various shapes, towns on the townsmen. For example, the text states that the difference in altitude of the land in which the town is to be constructed has auspicious and inauspicious effects on the people of the town. If the eastern side is high in altitude, then it results in prosperity of the town. If the northern side is elevated, then there will be increase in wealth. If the western side is high, then loss of wealth takes place. And if the southern side is raised, then it results in the death of the townsman. moving on to the defective houses. House plans and building bylaws are interconnected. Character, stability, and beauty are the essential qualities of a town building. A house plan must be true to its purpose, is most conform not only to the needs for which it's being planned, but its very appearance should indicate its purpose. The science of architecture is a social science, and it must take into account the needs of a society as a whole. Everyone cannot be expected to build a lofty harmya or a high dome prasada. Prasada term is used for both houses and also for temples. So, if you use it specifically for temples, it's called as Deva Prasada. Therefore, ordinary houses fit to the residences of the great populace, having ordinary means was needed. Moreover, apart from the economic point of view, the position or station in life also is important. The general classification house are Shala Bhavanas or popular residential houses, they are Rajaveshma or palaces, and Prasadas or temples. All other buildings fall under the auxiliary buildings of public and state buildings. The most prominent orbit of defects around which they revolve is the doctrine of Veda. Veda meaning the abstraction as a result of non-conformity of the mystic ideas of the Hindus in the realm of architecture. The purpose of Veda is the avoidance of obstruction of light and air, and this leads to a very highly developed technique of orientation of the buildings in ancient India. This was when Dr. Madhusudan sir explained today morning. He said that the pillars were kept on the sides so that there is a clean pathway without any obstruction. So that is also a part of not having this discrepancy of Veda. Main Veda is that of the Dwara Veda. The type of Dwara Vedas are a road, a tree, a corner, a wall, a pillar, a water channel, a temple, and so on. That should not be constructed before a door, because it will bring calamity to the master of the house, either to himself or to his sons or his wife or his wealth and properties. The Rajavallabha Bandhana lists the directions in which the auxiliary buildings or various rooms are to be placed, and its benefits as follows. They say the north side of the house should contain the treasury, dressing room, it should contain mineral like gold, etc., vault for storing cash, horse stable or stable for horse stable, and then the wife's room can be placed on the north side, medicine room, dining room, and garden area. Whereas the south side of the house, where the Agnisthana, it is called the Agnisthana, must contain the kitchen, sheds for elephants, cow, buffaloes, goats, and sheep, water tank, weaponry, room for ladies other than the wife. The text also states that when one needs to extend his house, he must do so in all directions without disturbing the original shape of the house. Only such an extension is auspicious. If not, it will lead to inauspicious outcome depending on the unequal protrusion in a particular direction. That is, if there is protrusion on the east side, enmity occurs. If the north side is extended, it will yield unwanted disturbance of mind. If the west side is extended extra, then there will be a destruction of wealth. And if the south side is increased, then fear of enemy is imminent. The Vishwakarma Vastastra states that houses should not face the openings of the streets or towers. A site should not be chosen if it makes an angle and breaks the continuity of the street line. The burning ground is to be set apart in the northeast corner or either in the north or south, where the sacred river flows by the side, and care must be taken that the smoke from the burning ground does not reach the residential quarters. Next. Moving on to Prasada architecture. Though there are many broad classifications for architecture that have been advanced by scholars in India, the devotional architecture has been the most favorite architectural activity, for the genius of the architectural skill and craftsmanship culminated into the profoundest of expression, both from the point of view of art and culture. As Sir P. Brown has aptly remarks, I quote, "It is evident that the fundamental purpose of a building art was to represent in concrete form the prevailing religious consciousness of the people. It is mind materialized in terms of rock, bricks, or stone, thereby establishing, unquote, thereby establishing that mind and architecture are mutually connected. Moreover, God and his temple correspond to the soul and human body, as has been already shown by Dr. Rama ma'am. And even the rituals that are done for the temples are akin to the samskaras that are done for a newborn child. The Agni Purana says that the body, Akriti, of the temple is Prakriti, meaning the temple is the macrocosmic representation of the macrocosmic Brahman. According to Shilparatna, prasadas are termed so as it is the place where the gods and men attain long-lasting peace of mind. Devadinam naranam cha yeshu ramyataya chiram manamsi cha prasidanti prasadastena kirtitaha. The Vishwakarma Vasastra specifies that the temple may face any one of the four cardinal directions, but not the intermediate directions. Particular directions that are prescribed for particular deities in the Agamas have to be observed, like, for example, Vishnu temples can face any direction, any of the four cardinal directions, but Shiva temple favorably has to face the southern direction. The temple may have openings on all four sides, and the building temples on the slopes of hills is not at all recommended. To conclude, the Brihad Samhita very aptly, in a direct and simple manner, records that only a place where one gets peace of mind or pleasure is an auspicious place. From the above, I have quoted the verse here. From the above verse and from the annotation found in the various architectural texts, we come to know that our ancients were aware of the fact that any piece of architecture influences human mind and therefore set down tenets and instructions for building structures so as to bring out the best out of them. For Garga, reflecting the views of Varaha Mihira that I have cited here, says, house or any residing place worthy of living can only be constructed at the place where one's mind and eyes are pleased. Therefore, it is seen that the ancient writers on architecture paid equal importance to the physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual well-being of men while constructing houses, palaces, temples, and so on. Thank you. I also thank the authorities of KSRA for giving me this opportunity.